Hello class, my name is Shawnee Hubiak, and I will be playing the part of one of the jurors in our case. Our case is Mrs. Jones versus the St. Ashford Hospital on Beverly's behalf. In this case, Beverly is being found that she did not observe the minimum necessary requirements when leaving a message with Mrs. Jones's daughter that included her medical condition as well as a detailed treatment plan. After reviewing both sides from the plaintiff and the defendant, I would find the defendant, Beverly, guilty. This comes from the evidence provided from both sides. To begin, Beverly was in violation of the HIPAA Act. The HIPAA Act is designed to protect individuals' medical records as well as other health information. This information is not just protected orally, but it's also protected on paper and on computers. This is covered in Title II of the HIPAA Act. Healthcare providers can only disclose PHIs without acknowledgement or consent from the patient in special situations. Some of these situations can include a fraud investigation, law enforcement that has the valid permission to require such information, or in cases where there could be suspected child abuse. And in this case, none of those options were shown that would give her the right to disclose the information to Mrs. Jones's daughter. Now, even though Beverly stated that Mrs. Jones's daughter was on the list to be able to disclose information to, she contacted or tried to contact Mrs. Jones through her home number. And if she would have reviewed her medical information or record in further detail, she would see that Mrs. Jones specifically asked to be contacted through her work number. Now, Beverly states that she did not want to contact through the work number because it's an unsecure line and you never know who is listening. But in this case, even if she thought that was so, Mrs. Jones specifically requested to be contacted through her work number. And if there was any confusion on which number she should contact, they should have contacted Mrs. Jones and further went into detail on who's to be contacted and which number to be contacted. Now also, in this case, patients have the right to privacy and confidentiality. Now, Beverly violated Mrs. Jones's rights to both of these. To start with, privacy is an individual's expectation to keep or control access to his or her individual space and knowledge of certain information. Now, there are many different types of privacy, and in this case, I would consider it informational privacy. This is controlling access to people's personal information. Now, Mrs. Jones' personal information included her medical condition as well as her treatment plan. In the same token, Beverly violated Mrs. Jones's right to confidentiality. Confidentiality is the legal obligation to refrain from sharing info about other people without their authorization. Mrs. Jones never gave Beverly authorization to share her information with her daughter in detail. So after reviewing this case and the evidence provided, Beverly should be found guilty in that she was negligent with information and knowledge about Mrs. Jones's medical record, as well as in violation of the HIPAA Act and privacy and confidentiality rights of Mrs. Jones. Thanks.